Hello and welcome to the show. For this week's Downhill Chaos, we have got some more mods installed. This time out, it is the realistic top speed mod, so the likes of the Adder here can do sort of 240-ish miles an hour. Of course, we're not going to be hitting 240 miles an hour down Mt Chiliad, but we are going to be an awful lot faster accelerating, so we're expecting some really rather quick sort of descent times certainly from this Adder. Of course, the difficulty with having this mod on is that the car does pick up speed. It doesn't sort of affect the brakes and handling as much. It's mostly the acceleration of the car. So yeah, it'll pick up speed ridiculously quickly, but you've got to remember to brake a lot earlier than I am used to. And if things do go wrong and you slightly clip a bush at high speeds, as we see there, it tips the car massively sideways, smacks it into a wall, and then we're in trouble. You can already see I got in trouble on this run. Smacked up the rear quarter of the car, carried so much speed, there's definitely no stopping it there, just whatsoever. Straight into the bush off the side of the mountain. Yeah, the acceleration was so phenomenal that the points where I would normally go on the brakes, the car was in the air. So yeah, you gotta be careful of that. I was messing about getting the car incredibly sideways. Again, did exactly the same thing. Launched it off the ramp, and we're tumbling and twisting an awful lot in the poor Adder. It picks up speed. It's just the acceleration is ridiculous in this thing, and on these kind of these narrow mountain roads, normally the cars barely get above sort of 80 miles an hour. Okay, I think the T20 got towards 90-ish at one point, but it's very rare that they get to them sort of speeds. And of course, with the acceleration you now have in the Adder, it's 90 miles an hour up to this corner here, completely out of control. And yeah, that didn't quite work at getting it stopped. I do love that the speed mod replaces the handling files, the same handling files that get replaced by the damage mod. So no, I cannot have the same ones on. However, the speed mod itself does come with an option to have some form of more damage. And as you can see, the back of the car is a very peculiar shape. Of course, also much like we saw the T20 just climbed a mountain when it fell off, this thing you could pretty much point it at a sheer cliff face and it would go straight up it. It's just got that much power and that much speed. Again, I was out a little bit too wide on the approach to the jump this time round and got myself in trouble before actually reaching said jump. Amazingly, despite making a very peculiar front of an Adder, I did actually keep it on the mountain, which is when you have an accident there, certainly when the cars are going this fast, when you have an accident there, it's a big accident. Again, I was pushing the car, trying to go faster, just braked a tad, or it wasn't so much braking too late, I just didn't quite slow it down enough for that jump, got a lot of airtime, and then yeah, we go again, tumbling. And of course, when we fall off the mountain here, we tend to fall off the mountain with some speed, and that kind of has some spectacular rolls and flips down the course. It took a little while to get a run from this car. It was just sort of getting used to the speed, getting used to the way that this car was going to pick up speed. Of course, we can't carry any more quarter speed through the various turns. We have to just wait and then kind of unleash it at this point here, but then suddenly get back on the brakes, because the Adder is not the best car at slowing down. It's quite a big, heavy vehicle. So yeah, it was literally a case of find a piece of road that you could fire it forwards and then instantly jump on the brakes again. It was a bit of an awkward car to drive down here when it has just this much speed. I mean, that's 80 miles an hour through there, and you just instantly you kind of hit the 80, then suddenly slam on the brakes to make sure we can get it slowed down for these next corners. The likes of the bumps and so on, well, that was just sort of a secondary concern really, whether the car would survive any of them. It was just focused purely on making sure you can get it slowed down. Fire it out of the corner, then make sure we get it slowed down, and just hope that it deals with the bumps. Having to really make sure to slow it down across that second of the big jumps. I even ran a little bit wide on this run, clipping the back of the car, but didn't lose any time, and then it's up towards the second to last corner. Car gets a little bit of oversteer. Now, this corner is normally flat out in supercars, certainly not when we've got this much speed. It's 95 miles an hour across the line with that sudden burst of acceleration. Definitely not going to control that. Jump across the finish line. The Adder made it down. Yeah, okay, there was a big crash after the finish line. It has a couple of scrapes along the way with the car. The speed is just unbelievable. Just the acceleration to get from that final corner to across the jump and getting sort of 90 miles an hour there is yeah, really rather impressive. Up next, the Penumbra, I think is how it is pronounced. Now this one, not only has it got sort of the improved top speed, is also being made front-wheel drive, like the Mitsubishi Eclipse that it's based on is, I believe. There are some four-wheel drive Eclipse. I think this is supposed to be from a front-wheel drive one. In the game, normally it's a rear-wheel drive car, but yeah, they've converted to front-wheel drive. I was kind of interested to see how this car would do, being now front-wheel drive. There's not very many front-wheel drive cars to choose from in GTA 5. The first run, things went sort of unspectacularally wrong. Really, I was still kind of in Adder mode, where with the ridiculous speed, and it's not as fast as the Adder. And let's face it, nothing is really as fast as the Adder. The one problem I found with this car, so whenever I do these, I tend to stick on sort of the visual parts to make the cars a bit more exciting, a bit more customized, and so on. This one here is actually quite a low riding car, and it gets caught on the floor. And when it gets caught on the floor, it has many of the issues, and we go straight down the mountain again, and it's a completely crumpled mess. I love how the roof on this car actually kind of crumbles in a little bit. Again, there wasn't a spectacular incident with this one. Dipped a wheel over the edge, and I was hoping I could get away with carrying that speed. I could not. And yeah, the car went round in a circle. It wasn't a terrible car to drive, this one front-wheel drive. I do like the anti-corner cutting methods on this track. It's just if you try and cut the corner, you will have a very, very big accident. I pushed my luck too much at the hairpin, and it didn't get it stopped. Got a little bit of a bounce up on the landing there. The bushes make for a very effective brake, though. At that particular point, the amount of momentum that bush just stopped with the car sliding through it is quite impressive. It's also why they are incredibly annoying when you're trying to race and you just go a tiny little bit wide. On that occasion, sure, I was spinning wildly out of control, so it was useful to stop me tumbling, but yeah, if you run a bit wide when racing, they are rather irritating. Again, it was the same point. The second jump has been causing a lot of problems for cars, more so I think on this PC version than I've seen before when I was doing this. Yeah, having a lot of issues trying to get the cars to slow down, but while still, you know, carrying decent enough speed. Over here is again trying to get it stopped. This time it was actually it should have been okay, in all honesty, on that one, but the front just kind of dug in a little bit, and then it spat the car upwards, and then this is the outcome of that particular one. It's yeah, that was a bit of a strange one, as I did slow it down, what I thought was enough, but for whatever reason we wanted to do a wheelie. And again, I mean, the cars are coming out interesting shapes. It's not quite as extreme as the previous damage mod, but yeah, it's still fairly hefty. Again, another landing of a jump. This time, it wasn't so much carrying speed. The car started bouncing, and as it was sort of bouncing its way, I got no brakes, and of course, you're not going to stop the car for the turn. And then we're off tumbling down again. Yeah, with this extra deformation, the cars really do tumble quite well. We've got I love how strong the wing is. It's a very peculiar shape, though, by the time that you have finished with it. Yeah, it took a while to get this car down. You had to be careful with the relatively low ride heights, because it could have issues dealing with the bumps. Speed-wise, yes, it is faster than the standard car. It will get to a higher top speed and so on, but acceleration-wise, it isn't massively better. Also, being front-wheel drive, we don't quite have the same traction. Certainly getting off the line, it's very noticeable. It struggled actually launching the car. I mean, through these turns, the vehicle was okay. So I'm making sure that I don't cut the hairpin. We get it around nice and neatly. It is a bit more manageable than the Adder. It certainly was a bit of a shock going from that driving that Adder with that amount of acceleration to anything is a little bit of a shock, because you get used to such ridiculous speeds, and then There's not quite so much in this. And now we come up to the scary bits. You've got to carry enough speed over that jump so that you have time to level the car out, but not, of course, carry too much speed that you miss the corner. It's always a little bit of a tricky one there. Again, making sure we get the car stopped. I was having to be cautious with this because I was just worried about what the bumpers and splitters and so on were going to do if they get caught on the ground. We do get a little bit on our side and cracked a couple of the windows across trying to get down the little escape road, and then it is across the line for the Penumbra. It was, front-wheel drive made it a bit of an interesting challenge to drive down the course. It was mainly the low ride height of the car that gave it some issues, and just getting caught out a couple of times. It did get some interesting damage at the front. Again, it was after crossing the line that we did the damage to the car. The front corner is, well, it's kind of almost making a ramp out of the front of the car. It's taking a lot of damage on that front corner. And finally, we had a supercar. I wanted to go for a sort of a more normal sports car. So it's perhaps not quite got the same ridiculous speeds that the supercars would get, but it should still be pretty damn fast. So, of course, we were going to have a go with the Banshee. It can make a nice flamethrower. Also, can have a rather huge wing. Didn't realise the Banshee could have quite as large a wing as this. Yeah, I wasn't, of course, not expecting this to go and beat the Adder, but I was curious to see how it would do compared to the other sort of sports and supercars that have gone down, now that it has more speed, effectively, much more acceleration. And on this first run, things were going remarkably smoothly down the mountain, which is rare. It was up until we go over the big jump. It gets a very big bounce on the landing, and we're off again. That jump is causing so many issues for these cars. I also love when it eventually comes to rest. Look what it's done to the wing. It's shrunk. The crash has shrunk the wing, and well, the back end of the car is not really much of a Banshee anymore. I will be honest. After that crash, it is a little bit of a mess. Yeah, I thought that had actually got the speed about right then. I landed it very nicely. It just got back up in the air, and then there was no controlling it. Me trying to avoid the bush on the outside of the course there may have taken a bit too extreme of avoiding measures, and dipped a wheel over the edge, promptly spun the car. If you dip the wheel over the edge at these speeds on this sort of course, there's very little you can do to gather it back up again. It is possible. I have done it a couple of times, but more than likely, especially in a rear-wheel drive car, you're going to be going round. This one, that's about the tamest crash I've ever had on that jump. It was only sort of like half a mile an hour too much speed. It was just out wide and got caught sort of in the ruts on the outside. I got it back under control, but completely missed my turning. Instant karma for hitting a hiker. Hikers are in a really awkward place. I tried to jump them and couldn't. Bounced off one of their heads. And that put me in a bad place and sent me down the mountain, and now we're stuck on our roof with a shrunk, just the whole rear end of the car is shrunk down there. The rear-wheel drive Banshee would eventually catch me. I'd done a pretty good job of not spinning the car out. Things had been going well up until the second to last corner, hit the bump, and the car has gone sideways, and I couldn't save it. That bump in that second to last corner is a really, really nasty bump to these cars, and certainly these rear-wheel drive sports cars are the most likely to kind of have issues through that part, especially when we've got cars as quick as this. The Banshee, it didn't take as long as the others actually to get a clean run out of this vehicle, but you're effectively giving it almost up to kind of supercar acceleration perhaps with this speed mod. I mean, that's about 84 miles an hour we got down here, and it's still relatively good on the brakes, relatively good through the corners. Okay, it's not going to have the grip of the likes of the T20, but it's it was a nice enough car to drive. Being rear-wheel drive, you do lose out a little bit on the traction, certainly, although it does make the hairpin much easier. That's about the limit of what you can do, kind of, not really cutting the corner, but that's as far as you can push it, going through that hairpin. It was on two wheels, it came down nicely. You can't cut any more of that corner, otherwise you will just roll the vehicle. Again, of course, having to be careful with these jumps. Don't want the car bouncing up on the landing of them. Got to judge the speed perfectly down here, and I was finding I'm having to brake kind of a little bit earlier so we don't get in the air before the first of before the second of the big jumps. Yeah, it's a lot more to think about when we have this much sort of speed and acceleration at our disposal. Did lose a little bit of time having to slow the car down a lot through that second to last corner to try and avoid spinning the vehicle out, or run across the line some 83 miles an hour as we cross the finish line. Of course, we're not going to get it stopped nicely when we cross the line at them sort of speeds. But yeah, I mean, the Banshee did pretty well. Yes, it's rear-wheel drive. It was a bit oversteery through a couple of corners. The acceleration was very nice, but brakes held up relatively well. Again, damage-wise, well, from the front of the car, things look fine. Just keep it from that angle, and, well, it's kind of okay. The rear quarter is it was a little bit bent in. On to the times. The Adder is the fastest of the bunch, which isn't a surprise. However, it did only do a 1:18.7. It's only 0.3 of a second quicker than the T20. Despite all of that speed, all of that acceleration, the Adder could only go 0.3 of a second quicker than that T20. That T20 is ridiculously fast because the Adder just doesn't have the corner grip that car does. It does have the acceleration, but down here, it's got to deal with a lot of corners. The Banshee did relatively well at 26.6. It goes quicker than the Blackfin. It's a couple of seconds down on the Kuruma. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit quicker. I don't think the added speed is effectively just affecting the acceleration of the cars here, and it's not quite making as much of a difference as I was expecting. I mean, it's 2.6 seconds down on the Osiris. It's an okay time certainly from the Banshee, but it's not quite as quick as I was perhaps expecting, because I mean the front-wheel drive Penumbra was a 27.4. I mean, that puts it around with the Dubster. It's slower than the Blackfin. Yes, it is front-wheel drive. That's pretty close to the Banshee's time. In all honesty, it goes quicker than the Guardian and the Casco. Yeah, the Penumbra, there was a pretty good time for that car. I think the Banshee, I certainly did struggle around that second to last corner with the bumps causing spinning issues, but yeah, the top speed mod didn't make as much of a difference on the times as I was expecting. I thought they would be a little bit quicker than they were, but you just can't use the acceleration very much around a course like this. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.